Work sessions are an opportunity for board members to discuss issues informally with staff and invited guests. The board encourages members of the public to attend work sessions and to listen to the discussion, but there is generally no opportunity for public comment. Members of the public wishing to address the board are welcome to do so during the board's regularly scheduled meetings. And you will be filling out, as we do each time, a public form before the meeting starts. So the first thing on the agenda is board communication. We have about 10 minutes for that. And I just wanted to start with that I had sent an email out concerning thoughts about the evaluation for the county manager. And I think that I just kind of wanted to get the thinking process going. And so I hope that you all got that. And as you think about it and want to add more and whatnot, I think we will probably set a work session in the future or sometime in the future that we can talk about it specifically, but probably not tonight. I just wanted to get the thinking going, if that's okay with all of you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I appreciated the article that was with it.
Wasn't that a good article?
Yeah.
Yes, very excellent article. So I'd like to leave this open to someone else who'd like to talk today.
Okay, I'm not going to be here next week because I'm actually going to go someplace warm and sunny. I know. I tried to tell my husband I was too busy having meetings, but he gave me a look that said I must be crazy, so I had second thoughts, so I'm going to try calling in on the 3rd, but that's it.
Sounds
It's
good.
supposed to rain down there.
Shut up.
Monsoon season, isn't it?
You know, it could happen. It feels odd. I just want to tell you, it feels odd, but I'm going to try and get used to something different. And I just gave Commissioner Webb business cards for a company named Veridian. I was at the Community Action Team on Monday, and they had these amazing, they're property managers, but their reporting structure is the most comprehensive, robust, accountable, transparent system I've ever seen. It's based on work orders so that it's possible to drill down on every single item. I've given the county manager copies of the reports that they had for all of the properties the Community Action Team owns. I've given Commissioner Webb the business cards, and so I'll pass them around, but I thought, holy cow, if it's possible that NOHA could actually have, these folks are located in Enterprise, but it was extremely confidence-inspiring to see the level of detail and the thought process that went into it. And they have local people, and Dan Brown at Community Action Team is also available to talk. So I think that's good news. I think that's very good news. I'll tell you that we're having meetings on getting community folks to step up to the plate to be community leaders for the child care task force. It's been a little slow to get going. It's a daunting, but housing, jobs, and childcare are also inextricably complex, interrelated systems. So working on that, been talking with people about community development corporations, expansion into our AOC District 7 territory on a 4-county basis for Columbia, Clatsop, Tillamook, and Lincoln counties, because Lincoln County Commissioner Chair Hall is now the chair of the Oregon Housing Stability Council. So if we try and get community development corporations to handle all of our counties, we might be able to get land trusts going. And the advantage to a land trust is that it owns the land on which housing sits. So it's a kind of a, I want to say a buffer or a governor, because the price of the land isn't included when somebody sells the house. So the land continues to be owned by the trust, and it's a way of maintaining into perpetuity the affordability of housing. So I've been talking with the county manager and some other people about that, looking to go forward. Again, it's a larger system issue, because if we can get collaboration into those economic systems and get the CDCs operating out here in our coastal areas, that's the county manager's idea. I thought we had to do it from scratch, but he said, well, why don't we just see if they can come out here? I thought, what a brilliant idea. This is why we hired this guy. So,
Give me too much credit.
yeah, wait, what hasn't happened yet, but if you think about it, it's feasible.
It's interesting, that's that movie that they did on Ray Crockett from McDonald's. That was his insight, is to own the land underneath the franchises.
Right.
And that's what made him
Rich.
his fortune.
Yeah. Well, I worked for Reach Community Development, which was a CDC in Portland. Yeah, in Buckman Housing Co-op in Southeast Portland back in the 80s. And so I tracked down the guy who got rich and famous after that. And so he recommended a couple of things. One is to see what the CDCs can do to help establish land trust, but the other was to get grants from Meyer Memorial Trust to do the inventory that's essential for economic development. You know, what kind of workforce do we have? What kind of buildings do we have? What kind of opportunities and access and all that kind of stuff. So we've been talking about that as well. Again, if we do this systematically, focusing on our county, but being willing to form strategic relationships with other counties. So I've been talking with Columbia County commissioners and to an extent with Tillamook County commissioners, just to see what we can do to get the larger systems operating. I know. The guy said to me, well, Leanne, your idea is a little complicated. If you broke it down into pieces, it might be easier to achieve. I said, Ed, you wouldn't be the first person who's ever said that to me. So if we can partialize it, but still have a comprehensive strategic plan, and our county manager is intimately associated with folks who can help us do that. So that's another asset that he brings to the table. The other thing is the Oregon Housing Stability Council has a member, a counselor, who's on the Meyer Memorial Trust board. And so I said to him, you know, it just seems so essential to me that economic development and housing have to happen together. One without the other doesn't do any good.
I really appreciate Commissioner Thompson. I know you spent a great deal of time over the years that I've been on this board looking and examining issues around housing, and I really appreciate you bringing that input back to us, because I think it's really going to take looking outside the box to find solutions, because we are in a tough spot. And for some reason, it's reminding me of a conversation I had with somebody at work. This gentleman and his wife were celebrating, at least, I think their 50th wedding anniversary, or maybe it was the 65th. There were two couples this week that were celebrating, and he turned out that he was a Spartan like I am, and like you are, from Michigan State, and I was, for some reason, I brought up the fact that I lived in a cooperative housing in East Lansing, and he said that when he got back from World War II, is that possible? Because it is possible, isn't it?
Yeah, if he's 90.
His grades, this is how it started. His grades were sent home to his mother.
Yeah.
And he said, I think he was a Marine. I think he was, anyways, he had quite a record. And his mother sent his grades back to him. He was in married housing at the time. And he went down to the college office and said, I really think you should be sending these to me at this point. And they made a change, and that's when I told them that I had lived in a cooperative. And the cooperative housing started in East Lansing by veterans coming back from World War II on the GI Bill, and they were told that they were going to need a house mother. and they said, we don't need a house mother. And they went out and got cinder blocks and built their own housing. And by the time I was there in the late 70s, early 80s, there were 7 houses in this block of community housing. And we all knew that when we lived there, we followed the rules, we had community meals together, and our rent went towards mortgages. And so I think when I went to the opening of the food co-op here, I recognized 2 people. I just knew they were not from here, and sure enough, they were with the national office for cooperative, for the food co-op. And so I think to bring this back around to what you were saying, Commissioner Thompson, is let's not reinvent the wheel. There's a lot of wheels moving. How do we grab a hold of some of these that will help us with our problem and bring it forward? And there's going to be multiple answers, I think. But we just got to keep working on it. So thank you for bringing that here.
Thank you for your kind words.
I'm so impressed with that because CDCs have been proven all over the country how successful they can be, and it's never.
Honestly, it's the best partner to build housing. I mean,
It really is.
there's not a
Goosebumps
better way.
now.
There's so many examples of successful CDCs, and
Kevin, may I call you out? Kevin, can you step up here for just a second? No, you're fine. This is Kevin Dahlgren?
Yes.
Can you introduce who you are?
I'm Kevin Dahlgren. I work for the city of Gresham, which is east of Portland, Oregon. I oversee the homeless program out there. Our homeless program is one of the highest success rates now in the United States with placing our chronically homeless in a permanent housing. It took us about 15 months. We've also seen an 88% drop in all police calls related to homeless activity. Keep in mind too, when I joined the city of Gresham 15 months ago, we had a higher per capita rate of homeless than Portland. It was chaos. And now I challenge anyone to find a gum wrapper on the ground. Everybody that wanted housing got housing, and we just cleaned the heck out of the city too. So I've been coming down to Astoria here and there because I grew up here as a kid to just work with leadership and hopefully adopt the similar ideas that work for us for your city.
So I met Kevin, and Monica was there too at the Homelessness Task Force meeting. I brought him up at the last meeting. And so hopefully sometime maybe in the future you can come and do a formal presentation with us. And I understand that you're here for the next day or so, and
Couple days, yeah.
couple days, and so
Happy to meet with anybody. I'm here.
that's what I was hoping for.
This is relaxing for me to talk about this stuff. So.
Okay,
And
all right.
I like to come every few months. So thanks for the invite. And call me if you want to meet up one-on-one the next few days. Too.
I sure will.
Come hang out.
Thank you. All right, thank
Are
you.
you the person that we saw in the film? The video?
They did do a documentary about my work in Gresham, so possibly.
Yeah.
Was it me? We've got a lot of media attention in the last year just because we've been so successful. And what I like to say is we did it without spending a lot of money. And I worked in the Portland system for 20 years, and as I like to sort of joke, if money were the solution, Portland would have already solved it.
Oh.
Because the budget grows every year, but so does the homeless problem, so tell me something's not working. So our advantage, as I like to say, is we had no money, so it would force us to be creative. We had to think smart about things rather than just like throwing money at the problem. And so with very little money, we solve, we have 10 times the success rate of all other cities. And so that's what I'm trying to share, because I also work in a smaller community. We have a population of 110,000. I know Astoria is much smaller, but I'm right next to a city of 800,000.
So
Okay.
Gussie and Chet are cheering you on, I bet, from the other side. I
Yeah,
bet
yeah.
they're waving flags, huh?
God, I haven't heard Gussie's name anymore.
Isn't that?
Yeah,
Yeah, I worked with both of them.
very cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, well, we've got some good things going on here. Thank you so much, Kevin, and thanks for your indulgence, everyone. So the next thing on the agenda,
Excuse me.
oh, I'm sorry, certainly, Commissioner Nebeker.
I'd like to say something.
Absolutely.
And this may be already known to everybody, but
Um.
I was talking to some physicians at Providence, and we have, rural Oregon hurts for care physicians, primary care and actually specialists. But Providence is doing a really good job. We've got a lot more physicians now. Nurse practitioners, heart specialists, and I think 2 physicians. So that's really good for our community. I don't know.
May I add on to that?
Yeah?
Part of the reason we have consternation in our neighborhood is that the local water board refused to sign off before the moratorium was in place, and the people who wanted to build the house there were 2 physicians who were working at Providence. And so their development has been delayed, it's been more expensive, and they have to live in Hillsborough and commute.
Well, all of these people aren't commuting, they all found housing.
Yeah, well, there are more who want to come, but housing and water is included in that as the issue. So that's very good news, thank you.
That's good news, because I know over the years, I've seen many doctors come in for interviews, and they don't always stay, so. Commissioner Webb, did you have something you wanted to say?
Well, I was just going to report that I attended a meeting in Florence earlier this week that was of the Southwest Workforce Board and the Northwest Workforce Board, whose geography is separated only by that part of, is it Lane County?
Yeah.
It's only about this big. And so actually we met in Lane County to talk about the possible convergence of the 2 boards. Because Benton County has asked to leave our workforce board, and which is very understandable. I mean, their population is in the valley, and, you know, it's very understandable. So we met for a couple of hours, exchanged information about what we were doing. Our focus areas are exactly the same. They're maritime, healthcare, and ours is focused on manufacturing of a little bit different type, but they also share an interest in manufacturing. So we talked, and we all got along for a couple of hours, and we agreed to talk again. So that is kind of in the air, and we're waiting to hear back from the state. I thought the state was going to be there, because it's the governor's decision about how these alignments happen, but unfortunately, they weren't. And we have promised to meet again and to explore further, and especially to explore further how that administration could work financially. You know, the good news is that our unemployment rate is very robust. The bad news is that our federal funding for workforce development goes down when that's the case. So we're actually looking at almost a crisis in administrative funds in keeping our workforce going, our workforce board going.
Commissioner Webb, if I may, the lack of staff for childcare is a screaming crisis.
Yes.
We don't have the businesses because we don't have the staff, and so that chicken and egg thing, can that be part of what you do when you're talking about?
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. In fact, I was going to ask, I think that was what I was going to ask you about, because clearly we've got to put more resources in to care at all levels.
Yeah.
Both, all the way from childcare to elder care.
I agree. I think that's great, and thank you for bringing that. I'm just becoming more aware, though, that there are some other topics on here that we need to discuss, so.
That's my
we'll-
report
we'll-
from my
I
liaison.
appreciate that. And so the next is the agenda, and it's my understanding that we moved the appointments to the action agenda.
Yes, Chair Sullivan, there is a amended agenda. And so in that, the one change was that
All 3 of those were
all of the
moved.
appointments will be part of the regular business.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else have any other comments or like to make adjustments to the agenda?
I just want to make sure I understand that
So the Human Services Advisory Council, the Ambulance Service Advisory Committee, and the Budget Committee, all of those will be under the action rather than under the consent.
So this is for the regular agenda.
I think you, if that's the old copy, there's,
yeah, I don't
Yeah,
have
it
any.
was.
okay.
Here's one next to you.
Oh, there's one right in front of my face.
Okay.
And now they're here.
Sorry.
All right, so if we have no other comments, let's go on to the committee, committee appointments, number 1. Who is speaking to that? Thank you, Monica.
Commissioners, so we have 2 vacancies on the Budget Committee. District 2 and District 3 are both vacant. We had a total of 4 applicants. 3 of those came from District 2, and 1 of those came from District 1. One of the applicants from District 2 is requesting to be reappointed. Greg Sawyer is the existing, or was the existing Budget Committee for District 2. Tita Montero and then Robert Shortman also applied for District 2. And we didn't have any District 3 applicants, but Jed Arnold from District 1 did apply. In regards to the length of the terms, District 2 would be a full 3-year term, and the District 3 term would just be, it would expire in February of 2021, so it would just be for this one budget cycle.
Ms. Still, do you about the Westport, it's got the one name.
That individual, so Westport always has vacancies on it, the Westport Budget Committee, and typically the board, because the board is 50% of the Budget Committee, but in the case of Westport, they're 100% because there haven't ever been any other applicants. So this would just be appointing somebody in addition to yourselves to the Westport Budget Committee, similar to the way that it works for the 4-H and Extension.
So what does that mean that the name, she would be appointed, I'm not understanding it.
She would be appointed to the Westport Budget Committee. So you have 4 component units that we typically go over on a separate day. So you have the road district, the rural law enforcement district, the Westport sewer district, and the 4-H and extension. Each of those are 4 individual component units, so they each have their own budget committee. And you also serve as the budget committee for those 4 component units. Historically, in the time that I have been here, there's never been an applicant for the Westport. We always advertise, but there just has never been an applicant.
And this year we have someone.
So she would be a 6th budget committee member, including the 5 of you.
So she would be added to the budget committee when we talk about Westport?
Yes, only when you talk about Westport.
But in a perfect world, would Westport have 5 people?
In a perfect world, yes.
But so far, we're just gaining on it. We just have 1 person.
And I think the biggest challenge is just, it's a very small district, and so there's not a large pool to pull from. And so we'll continue to try and to encourage, but at least we took a step forward.
The trend is
So,
good.
The trend is good.
Trending towards that.
First
Okay.
one ever, so.
Okay, thank you.
So at this point in time, staff is not making a recommendation. We're just leaving it open for the board to decide. Historically, we have tried to have somebody to represent each district, much like yourselves. Each budget committee member would be from a separate district. And so that would not be the case unless unless the board directed staff to go back out and try and recruit some more from District 3. We did have this open from, I believe it was the beginning of November through the first week of February that we were advertising these vacancies, so.
And it's my intention tonight to go through a nomination process where we will nominate for each position, and then we will vote for each position. And we'll do that for each one of the committees and appointments, so. Okay,
I have a question.
sure.
Is the idea that a budget committee member comes from each district, is that part of anything written? Is it our board rules? Is it our, I mean?
It's not written, it's just been, as far as equal representation, there's a board member from each district, and so we've just always tried to recruit a budget committee member from each district for that equal representation, but it is not written anywhere.
It's more custom than anything, so.
Okay. Are we going to talk about that now, or are we going to talk about it at the board meeting.
Talk about what?
Well, how this will proceed, because
That's what I have a script. Nominations are open for this appointment of this, and then I will listen for appointments, and there'll be, no, I don't have to second that. Second person, and then once we get the nomination, then we will vote.
okay. Then I guess this is the place where I should say that I have tried very hard to recruit.
I'm sorry, we'll vote on them in the order that they're nominated.
Okay. I have tried very, very hard to recruit someone from District 3, because I feel passionately that there should be somebody from every district on the Budget Committee. I have been unsuccessful, but I would like an opportunity. When is our first Budget Committee meeting? Refresh my memory.
It's the last week of April when the budget will be distributed and the budget message is read. I want to say it's the last Wednesday in April.
So I would like to be given the opportunity to once again continue recruiting someone from District 3. So I would ask that the board not appoint a person to fill that slot.
Well, let me ask you this, though. I believe the District 3, that one position is just until next year, right?
Right, it's a
Yes.
one-year.
This
It's
is
a
1
one-year
year. And
term.
then it'll open back up to a 3-year term.
Right.
Yes.
So you've been trying to recruit for how long?
For this year. I mean, I was trying to recruit for the vacant commission, or a position that was occupied by Brian Kidder, who has
Right.
moved away. And I've just simply been unsuccessful, but maybe I haven't tried hard enough.
Do you think that, I'm just putting this out there, do you think perhaps, since we're heading into March in a couple days, and the budget starts in April, that you would be comfortable with completing this budget cycle and then continuing to recruit for the next budget cycle for District 3?
No, because I think that often 1 year of service on an entity like this allows somebody to experience it and know whether or not they'd like to continue. And so, I just think that I mean, I've spoken to many people, and actually I had somebody I thought was going to apply for the position, and he simply didn't. So I'd like to try.
Well, do you have an idea of how much additional time you would need?
Well, it sounds to me.
We would reopen it and re-advertise, and then you could continue to try to recruit.
Right. And so
Would
if-
we be doing that for the entire budget nominees, or?
I don't think it would be necessary, but I would just like to have another month.
So
meet the
so
motion.
fill one and hold one.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
What I would suggest is that we do fill the one vacancy then that's not District 3, and then we can open up the recruitment, allow Commissioner Webb to try to find an applicant, and then if we do, we'll come back to the board before the first meeting.
Right.
And if we don't, then we'll have a conversation about how you'd like to proceed.
Okay,
So.
I would be very happy with that. Is that okay, Commissioner?
Oh, yes.
Because you'd like to get this going.
That's fine.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments on this section?
Well, just curious, are you looking for someone from Astoria or from the Lewis and Clark?
Actually, I was kind of hoping to have somebody from the southern part of the district, because
Yeah.
all of the other folks have been from urban areas.
Yeah. Okay, we'll
I
talk.
just haven't, yeah.
Okay, we'll talk.
Okay. Does anyone else have any other comments about the Budget Committee? Okay, so I got it. Thank you,
Thank
Ms.
you.
Steele, I appreciate it. So the next thing on the agenda is Justice Reinvestment Grant. And
There's 2 more committee appointments to talk about.
next thing on the agenda is the next committee
It's
appointment.
the Ambulance Service Area Advisory Committee.
Sure, right after I turned off my timer. Okay. Hello, Ms. Brown. What would you like to?
Commissioners, I'm here tonight to talk to you about the recommended appointments to the Ambulance Service Area Advisory Committee. We've had a couple of vacancies since last year, and which is the reason for the delay in bringing it to you. We then didn't have a quorum, a couple of meetings to vote on
I
it.
think I was part of that problem.
Yeah, I reached out to Heather to ask her after the last meeting. We looked at our bylaws to see if there was a creative way that we could vote, and our bylaws do not provide for anything outside of physical meetings. Heather said that I should just put forward what the group, they did vote for these appointments. There just wasn't a quorum, so. We have 2 reappointments in front of you tonight, one for Jill Tillotson, who fills the registered nurse position, and the second for Dwayne Johnson, who is a citizen position. They also serve as chair and vice chair for the committee. And for the ambulance service, the initial appointments are 3 years, and all subsequent appointments are 2 years. So this would be for 2-year terms ending in June of 2021. I'll note that part of the quorum issue is that we've had an outstanding vacancy since I took over this committee in 2015. And then we had somebody, and we were just to a place where we had all the positions filled, and we had a longtime member retire from the committee or in the fall. So we'll continue to advertise for the vacant position. We do once or twice a year. With these 2 appointments, we'll still have a vacancy.
Okay, does anybody have any comments on that?
If I could.
Sure.
Dwayne Johnson has served on this forever and a day since God was young. And everything I hear says that he's done a wonderful job. So I express my appreciation to both these members, but particularly to Dwayne, because he's done wonderful service.
And I keep putting the word out for all sorts of advisory committees around the world at this point, but it's hard to get people in, but I'll keep working on
The
it.
challenge with this one is that our bylaws state that the citizen positions can have no affiliation whatsoever with the EMS. And those are the people that are interested in serving, so. In fact, we have Dan Travers, who's the Lifelight manager, who attends regularly, but because of his affiliation, he's technically not eligible for one of the citizen positions. So just to give you an example, we have some positions that are vacant, but we still have people that are interested in the committee.
It seems like it would be good to have one person who is affiliated.
Well, we have several who are. We have the medics franchise manager, we have his attending physician, and so we have 2 people affiliated with medics specifically that are on the committee. But the citizen positions state explicitly that they not be affiliated with the EMS.
So I just read that Frank Swedenborg retired from Cannon Beach Fire because he lives in Astoria. I wonder if he is no longer affiliated and would thus qualify and might be interested because he's a community servant.
That's a good one. Okay. Anything else? We have one more committee, so. And I promise I'll go to the next one. I was held up by work and I felt terrible about it last time.
We're happy to have you there.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Brown.
Thank you.
And the next person? Ms. Steele again, and I got a text from Commissioner Quayla, and he is on his way from Seaside. So, hi.
Hi, I have with me Lauren Wilson. She is our social services coordinator, and she is the staff liaison to the Human Services Advisory Council. And so she's also here to fill in any questions that you might have. But we have 2 applicants who applied. We have 2 vacancies. Both of the applicants who applied are looking to renew their positions on the advisory council, and that's Linda Crandall and Marilyn Durlett.
Are you asking for a decision from us?
No.
Just,
If you have any questions about it?
Yep.
Grateful for their service, grateful that they're willing to continue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there 1 vacancy?
2.
2 vacancies and 2 applicants.
Okay, so let's move on to legislative discussion. No, sorry. Justice Reinvestment Grant Measure 57 grant.
Kristen Hanthorn from Parole and Probation. Yep, and you guys know me, Matt Phillips from the Sheriff's Office. I came mostly to provide emotional support. Smile. Lieutenant Hanthorn's actually the expert here. She's pretty well known around the state. Just last week, Hood River expressed their thanks and gratitude for her assistance in starting their program.
Well, very good. Thank you very much. Congratulations.
Yeah, so we've been receiving Justice Reinvestment Act grant funds since 2013. And during the last two bienniums, starting in 2017, we started our pretrial release program at the jail, and that's what the bulk of our money goes to. We also have 10% of our funds, over $50,000, go to nonprofit victims.
Just
units.
talk louder, that's all I'm trying to say.
Nonprofit victim agencies, the Lighthouse, Child Abuse Assessment Center receives some funds from the grant. BOCA receives some funds from the grant, and does the harbor. We have 2 staff that work in the pretrial release program. What their duties are, they go into the jail, they interview the new inmates that have come in, find out whether they have housing, whether they have a job, what resources they have, make an assessment on whether to recommend to the court whether they be released pending trial. We utilize a program by Automon, which is our database, that we input the people into the program, and this program will do text reminders to them of their court dates, and it's a way for us to communicate with them. We've been...
It also tracks outcomes.
Tracks the outcomes. We have...
I'm sorry, it does what?
It tracks the outcomes. So we're tracking our court appearance and safety rate and success rate and those things.
So the tracking outcomes, that's a result of this program, right? But that also leads to you to be able to get more funding and stuff in other ways, right?
Yes, we want to see if the work that we're doing is being effective.
Mm-hmm.
So it's built right into the program. Safety rate, for instance, if someone completes their period of time on pretrial release without committing a new crime or being violated by having contact with their victim, then that's a success. And right now, we're well over 90% of the people that are in this program complete it successfully. We have probably 250 cases open now, individuals open that are in the pretrial program, because we've been doing it now for three years. And so this year in this budget, we have requested to add a second pretrial specialist and take the alternative custody deputy that was assigned to that program and put him back in the jail where his services can be better utilized for the experience that he has. Did you guys have any questions about the Justice Reinvestment? I want to make sure that I answer your questions.
I have a couple of questions. It was really wonderful to look through your application. Commissioner Nebaker has been doing a wonderful job of kind of keeping us up to date about what the I'm blanking on the word. Right. But this was very robust. This was really wonderful. I would personally like to see the performance indicators that you're talking about. I think that'd be really useful for us to see and to really give us the scope. It was a little confusing to me in the application about what the numbers were. And I'd love to see a complete performance measurement over time of the indicators, because I think this is something that we have certainly talked about, is trying to beef up our performance measurement throughout the county. And this is a wonderful example of performance measures that I think are very relevant and very important.
So one of the performance measures that we have is appearance rate, and that's the person out on pretrial release, they're not missing their court appearances. Right. And so we don't have any way to look at the state data, the state courts data, to find out what our fail to appear rate was before this program. Right. But moving since we've started it and capturing the data ourselves, we can show that we are at 90% of people are meeting all scheduled court appearances.
I saw that in
Yeah.
here. I was hoping for almost a matrix of the performance measures.
Like over time?
Well, in the future over time, you know,
Okay.
because that's what you want to do with performance measures. But I thought that because basically in your application, you had two sets of data. You used 2018, I think.
Yes.
And so I just would like to see the matrix of performance measures. It's something I'm interested in.
It may also depend too on how much, what the time and commitment it would be to do that, or is it just that you had the numbers, it's just a matter of repackaging them?
We
I'm
can,
sure
we
they
can
have
run, run the numbers in our system and run the reports. They fluctuate. We're seem to move, getting better and better all the time. Our length of stay is another thing that we're looking at. How long is somebody in custody before they're released? Because research shows that the longer someone stays in custody, they're losing their housing, they're losing their jobs, they're using those things to keep them stable in the community. Our safety rate at the time that I did this application is down to 2.7, or not safety rate, our
Average length, the length of stay.
length of stay is down to less than 3 days per
I
person.
saw that, 2.7.
It might also be interesting to figure out how much money is being saved by this program being successful.
That's hard.
Well, we know what the
Because
daily
if they're in
cost
jail
is.
3 days instead of 3 weeks, that's a big savings.
It is a
Sort of,
savings.
except someone else will fill that spot.
Yes.
That's hard to do. But I think if I'm hearing Commissioner Webb, public safety is one of our major goals. And what I think we're looking at as a team is how do we ground truth what's happening in the community through our programs so that we have data-informed decision-making and you help us understand and see what's happening. So I'm thinking you're talking about work sessions on an ongoing basis, just the way we do with healthcare and roads and everything else, housing that's a priority for us, so that you help us understand the real impact of the taxpayer money and how it's spent on programs.
That's very doable. And, you know, in my mind, I'm thinking of ways to do that. One of my projects for this year is to revise our website for our segment of the county website. And I'm thinking those pretrial data stuff can be uploaded into that so people can see that.
Absolutely.
And,
I don't want to have to look at a website. I want you to come and eyeball us and talk to us.
Also, Criminal Justice Commission keeps a lot of that data on their dashboards.
Yes.
And you can go in and look and see what Clatsop County, how many people they're sending to prison and what they're sending them for and things, and how our prison utilization has gone down since we've started our pretrial release program.
I have another question. When, I remember a year or two ago, when you first came to the board with a report about the use of the tool that you were using when an inmate is first incarcerated, and that is the vehicle that you were using to assess them was the Virginia something or another.
Pretrial
And-
records, yeah.
And I have a daughter who is a social worker and a former probation officer in Virginia, so I called her and said, what's this tool? You know, and she said, well, it has become the standard for, you know, for a lot of jurisdictions. But she said, the effectiveness of the tool is almost entirely dependent on the person who is administering it.
It is.
And I'm
Yes.
wondering if your change from a deputy to another kind of a person it reflects that kind of thinking.
I think that, well, that's complicated. One, we don't use the VPRI for all of our release assessment decisions because it was validated in Virginia. It's since been validated in other jurisdictions.
In Yamhill County.
But we're using the public safety checklist for Oregon, and that's the one that was validated in Yamhill. And so because it's more local, it's more likely to reflect.
I understand.
Now that we have a few years of data in our pretrial, we could do a validation study on which elements of our process are actually predictive instead of just association or
Gotcha,
correlation.
Ooh,
And so
Ooh, I
we're
love it when
working.
you talk like that. That's
Right.
fabulous. Well, because that's real, that's the point, isn't it?
Right,
It's
yeah.
Evidence-based.
And so we can work towards that. As far as whether the person's a deputy sheriff in that position or not, I think we have evidence we're doing good interviews because our success rates are so high and our safety rates are high. And so we're hitting all the benchmarks that we'd like to, including the court appearance. If you looked at best practices for pretrial, the person in that position wouldn't be a sworn law enforcement officer. And so
Okay.
we will be saving
That
some
makes
money,
sense.
but we'll make sure that we get the right kind of person in that position.
Good, thank you.
I just have a
Sure.
comment. So I remember when the funding model switched over to the Justice Reinvestment Program rather than what we had before. And there was a lot of concern that we were going to be hurt by it. It's possible. But it gave a lot of freedom, too, to, correct me if I'm wrong, but to decide where the money would be best spent. And I think you've done a great job of figuring it out because obviously the outcomes have improved so much.
They have, and we have really cut the amount of inmates that are being released because of overcrowding, just based on our pretrial program. And we're letting people out of custody while they're waiting for their case to be heard, and we're taking some risk, but they're being successful. So that makes us want to take a few more risks and maybe let the next person out and let them be successful also. We also, as far as risk tools, we're always looking to see if there's something better. I went to the National Pretrial Conference last summer with Judge McIntosh. We sat in on several sessions on domestic violence offenders and what risk tools they're using for them to better improve our safety with that population. And so we're constantly revising and looking to see what else is out there. Our local pretrial group continues to meet quarterly with the judge and the DA's office and the defense bar. So we're constantly revising our processes. Mage 57, I didn't talk about too much, but that's just funding that comes into community corrections to provide repeat property offenders with drug addictions with more enhanced services. So we use a lot of that funding for treatment. So that's not a barrier if someone doesn't have OHP yet or they don't have other ways to get drug and alcohol treatment, that we can get them in quickly and get them in and have them be served and make some successes there.
I remember 3 years ago when I first came on studying this. In fact, I called you with a lot of questions. And then I think we had a presentation of this when I was attending County College. And so I'm really happy to see that it's been as successful as it has been. Can you talk a little bit, is there a connection between that and the treatment court and the family court? Is that they have their own funding streams?
They have their own funding streams. And
That's after they've been adjudicated,
that's
right?
after they've been adjudicated. And, one of the things in our pretrial is we're trying to identify those people that might have that might be appropriate for those programs. And so we can, try to advocate or steer them that direction. Our specialty courts, the adult drug court and the treatment court are also very successful programs, and we're really increasing the number of people that we're serving in the mental health treatment court, and that those grants help fund part of our expenses for the staff that oversee those programs. About 70% of our community corrections is funded by our grant and aid money, and the rest are through these grants.
This is maybe a little off the subject, but do you know if Clatsop County follows the Oregon trend of most of our crimes are property crimes rather than violent crimes?
I would think that's accurate statewide.
Yeah,
just because
statewide, but I don't know about.
There's more crimes that are property crimes to commit.
But other states, they have greater numbers of other types of crimes. So this is what
I could probably look up some data for you and answer that
A
better.
fuller picture, and the other part of the fuller picture I'm interested in is, are there unmet community needs in terms of mental health and housing and childcare and all of the, so you probably know.
We've got those fixed already.
I'm glad to hear it. No, but if you can track those and report to us on that so that you inform us going forward, not only what you're doing, but if there are things that we could attend to that would reduce the need in the future, I think that'd be useful, and I'm conscious of the clock, so, thank you.
I just want to thank you for all the hard work that's involved with this, and congratulations on the successes that you're finding. Thank you. So we are coming to just a few minutes before the regular meeting. I know we had another thing on the agenda, but do we need to visit that, or should we talk about that at another time? Okay.
I don't have any updates.
Okay, I don't have any updates either, so let's take a short break before our 6 o'clock meeting. Thank you. Welcome. The Board of Commissioners is the governing body of Clatsop County, all county service districts for which this body so acts, and as the Clatsop County Local Contract Review Board is now meeting in regular session. Shall we all stand for the flag salute, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. May we have the roll call, please?
Commissioner Nebeker? Here. Commissioner Webb?
Here.
Commissioner Kula?
Here.
Commissioner Thompson? Here. Commissioner Sullivan?
Here. Thank you. We have a quorum. Let's move to the approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion for approval of agenda?
I move that the agenda be approved as amended.
Any seconds?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. So it goes. We will now move to business from the public. This is an opportunity for anyone to give a 3-minute presentation with any item on the agenda except public hearings, or any topic of county concern that is not on the agenda. People wishing to speak during the business from the public must fill out and sign a public comment sign-in card prior to the start of the meeting. By rules, we will limit our discussion period to 30 minutes. And again, I want to remind everyone that this is an opportunity for the public to come and give testimony, to speak, and it is the opportunity of the board to listen. This is not a dialogue period. So let's get started. And I also want to welcome everyone here. It's always good to see the public at these meetings. I think it's important that we all are involved. So the first one on the list I have is Mr. Ken Potter.
Hello, my name is Ken Potter. I'm from Cannon Beach. You need my address? It's 131 Ross Lane in Cannon Beach, P.O. Box 492. I just want to say that I am so happy with our Board of Commissioners and how well we handle county business. And I just want to ask that everyone confine themselves to county business and that we don't get too involved in all of the state legislation. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Potter. Next up is Shelly Solon. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Solon.
Solon, okay, thank you. Thanks for coming tonight.
So my name is Shelly Solon. I live at 35441 Homer Lane, Astoria. And I was coming in today to ask you all to oppose the cap and trade for Clatsop County. I'm asking that you sign the proclamation. So far, we have 27 counties in Oregon that are opposing cap and trade. They have signed proclamations. And so I am asking all of you to consider that and sign the proclamation and join all the other coastal communities. Tillamook just signed today. They had a unanimous vote from their commissioners, and they signed the proclamation against cap and trade. Our county doesn't need it. I have a logging business, a log trucking business. I have 10 log trucks. I employ 10 people. My employees make a good money. We're able to give to local charities. With all these new taxes, with cap and trade and all the increases in fuel taxes, we're not going to be able to do what we're doing now. We're not going to be able to employ these 10 people. We're not going to be able to give to 4-H, to the Pacific League, to everything else, United Way, everything else that we donate to here locally. With our 10 trucks we purchased in 2019, 104,000 gallons of diesel, and at the average price of $2.65, the diesel cost for us was $275,600, and the tax on that was another $25,000. So the total for diesel and tax, we already paid just last year over $300,000. So with cap and trade goes through, in our area, for the extra 22 cents a gallon, that puts my company alone, just our 10 trucks, paying an extra $22,800 a year. It's a lot of money. So maybe the Portland areas and the metro areas aren't as concerned as we are, because right now there's a 60-cent difference in what they're paying for gas and diesel and what we pay here coastal. So I just really urge you all to oppose cap and trade. We don't need that for our area. And I'm with the group Timber Unity. We have a 4-point plan, and I made copies for each of you. We can do better. We don't need to put our families, our businesses through all this extra expense. It's just too much money. We don't need it. We're doing things better. I know the local loggers, and you'll probably hear from some of them. They're already planting, you know, for every tree they cut down, they're planting 4 more. And for my company alone, can I tell you the last part? For our company alone, we're doing what we can too. We just purchased a new log truck, so it has a new clean diesel, right? So we have the DEF in it. And just that truck was over $200,000.
Okay.
So, you know, our logging companies, we're doing our part. We don't need this. And I just ask that you all sign the proclamation, a proclamation to oppose cap and trade.
Thank you for coming today.
Can I give you the copies of
Yes,
this?
that would be, you can give them to Teresa and she'll pass them out. Thank you so much, Ms. Solon. Okay, next is Midori Larson. Again, we have 3 minutes.
My name is Midori Larson, and I live at 39655 Burnside Loop, Astoria, Oregon. Sorry, I've never spoken in front of people like this before, but...
You're welcome.
Thank you. I just ask that the commission consider and take a testimony from the local people in Clatsop County and think about opposing cap and trade. In addition to what it's going to do to the employers around here, which we employ 12 truck drivers and another 40 people on the logging side, so this is going to affect them extremely. It's going to be detrimental to them. We have bought brand new log loaders this year. We bought 2 brand new log trucks that are Tier 4. They're $210,000 a piece. You know, most of my fleet is Tier 4, Tier 3 and Tier 4. But for some of the people around here, it's too hard. They're just making it by. They can't update their fleet. So this is going to be very detrimental to them. But not only what it's going to do to the employers, but this is not the bill to pass. This is not the proper way to mitigate climate change. I agree that there is an issue with climate change, and I think that it does need to be a concern of all of ours, but I don't think that this cap and trade, the way the bill is written, is the right way to go. There's no transparency. There's zero transparency. You've got 27 counties who are opposing it. This needs to be handled on the federal level. I mean, honestly, Oregon is a green state. I heard today in the Tillamook County meeting, they said 31 metric tons of carbon are sequestered each year by our forests. I mean, we're doing a good job, and I just don't think cap and trade is the way that we need to go. I think it's going to be detrimental to this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Larson. The next one is Katie Pritchard.
Good evening, Commissioners. Katie Pritchard, 836 Nehalem Avenue, Astoria.
Commissioners, I implore you to consider a proclamation against current legislation that is known commonly as cap and trade, the climate bill, the green jobs bill, or cap and invest, and finally cap and tax. Specifically known as this session as Senate Bill 1530 and House Bill 4167, because one wasn't enough, they created another way to amend one bill and pass it to the other. I want to be clear that I'm not denying that humans have an impact on the earth. Take a look at where most of our textiles come from the clothes we are all wearing today. India, China, Indonesia hold the most polluted rivers in the world. You will see what a terrible impact we have on emissions and the pollution of our ocean if you look outside Oregon's green borders. Those places play a much higher role in acidifying the ocean than Oregon ever could with our best-in-class manufacturing and responsible stewardship of the land. There are some serious concerns that I want to point out that impact our people, our environment, our economy, our community here in Clatsop County. These bills do not promise that our carbon output is going to be reduced here in Oregon. It does, however, promise to spend lots of money to the tune of $91 million immediately upon passage. Remember the emergency clause that they so desperately want to leave in there. This is going to be spent before it's determined what the actual cost of this bill will be in the next budget. It is very complicated and not very informative. Often legal counsel is being summoned to assist in answering committee questions, then always left with the potential that a judge may overturn it as no answer has been clear. I have watched for answers. I have sought to understand the logic, and there is none there. I have a friend right now going through the testimony one by one, reading each of them, and she has thus far reached 498 in favor and 1,964 opposed. And she has many more to sort through. It is a daunting task, and as she reads through, she consistently comes across the same verbiage. We as citizens should be allowed to vote on such legislation. Commissioners, you represent an estimated 39,000 citizens, many of whom are employed in the farming, forestry, and fishing industries. These bills will directly increase costs to our residents by causing large increase in fuel costs. Our freight is primarily hauled in by truck, and all our finished products must be hauled out by truck, including fresh and processed seafood, logs, and paper products made at our mills. The bill will increase the cost of those finished products to the point that they will no longer be competitive in the marketplace. But let me assure you, others outside of our county and our state will fill that market. That is what the bill calls leakage. Commissioners, I do not want my friends' jobs and businesses to be called leakage. These bills will result in loss of revenue to local businesses, loss of jobs, and will most certainly result in increased costs to consumers, some of which cannot afford anything more on their fixed income, all directly impacting in our local economy. 87% of Clatsop County is forest land. It has been shown that forest lands and subsequent harvest and replanting is a huge carbon sink. This lowers our carbon footprint and that of the entire state at no cost to taxpayers. We in Clatsop County may already be carbon neutral, and I look forward to showing you the reports that may show that in the near future. May I finish my last paragraph?
Yes, quickly, please.
Any benefit derived through these bills, many of which are still in dispute, do not justify the penalties and costs imposed by these bills. The short session this voter, myself, voted for was because it was for the correction of technical errors and omissions in the biennium budget. Senate Bill 1530 and House Bill 4167 are not a small budgetary fix and are far outside the scope of what we promised to my fellow citizens when we voted for a short session. Such a major public policy should be referred to the ballot, allowing all Oregonians to weigh in on this matter. For these reasons, I request that you add my request to oppose these bills to your agenda and take the matter into consideration on behalf of the people you were elected to represent. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pritchard.
And I'd like to just add this information that I gathered.
Yeah, go ahead and give it to Teresa, and she'll pass it out. Thank you. Okay, so the last one that I have in front of me is Andy Davis. Oh, wait a minute, I have one more besides Andy.
You want me to go first, or?
Yes, go ahead, Andy.
Good evening, Commissioners, staff, members of the public. My name is Andy Davis. I live at 376 3rd Street in Astoria. I serve as the chair of your Comprehensive Plan Update, a countywide advisory committee, and as a member of your budget committee. I do everything I can to serve your committees impartially and always strive to be fair to all the residents of this county. I'm also the chair of the Clatsop County Democratic Party. Because I'm very conscious that I serve the county and the party in different fashions, I am reluctant to make public statements that might sow any doubt in my commitment to nonpartisanship at the county. It is a difficult decision to come here tonight and speak. But I've seen in the paper some commissioners' response to the cap and trade bill at the state legislature, and I know that many county commissions in the state have taken a stance in opposition to the bill. I felt obligated to come and give my feedback on you taking a stance. Wearing my politics hat, the Clatsop County Democratic Party has not taken an official stance on this particular bill, SB 1530. However, this bill is in alignment with the values stated in the party platform when it says, quote, "We believe our climate is in crisis from man-made climate change and we must take immediate action," unquote. With that context, the party would urge you not to oppose this bill as a county. But I want to take off my politics hat for a moment and represent just myself as a resident and a member of your committees. I've interacted with a lot of people through my work at the county, and there is legitimate anxiety on both sides around taking climate action. On the climate activist side, they feel an urgent need to address climate change. They are worried that climate change will cause massive disruptions to their communities and to the lives of their kids and grandkids. They know that big programs like cap and trade will be disruptive to some industries, and they support programs to help transition impacted people and communities away from fossil fuel reliance. But their priority is to solve what they believe is climate crisis. On the timber activist side, there is a real and pressing concern that this bill is going to disrupt their lives here and now. It's seen as a threat to their livelihood, their culture, their continuity, and proud history. Some of the timber activists I've talked to are also worried about climate change, but their priority is their jobs and their way of life. I believe we need to honor both of those perspectives. I want everyone to remember that when this is all over, we're still neighbors in Clatsop County. We will still need to solve a climate crisis, a jobs crisis, or both. That's not going to happen if we can't listen to and validate each other's concerns and work cooperatively towards solutions that address all of them. I implore you to all talk to your neighbors face to face with compassion rather than anger and see how you can help each other confront these serious issues together. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. And now we have Susanna Gladwin, please.
My name is Susanna Gladwin, 82316 Highway 103, Seaside, Oregon. I really ask you to understand in depth, which will be very difficult, what this cap and trade bill is all about. It's very complicated. The whole diesel pricing is really targeting Portland, which has a huge diesel emission problem. They have worked hard to do, I think, remittances, or there are ways that they are working to, and in the bill, though I couldn't pull it out of it, it was too daunting for me, of ways to help rural communities with diesel, knowing all the ways that we are very dependent on trucking, bringing in goods, on logging, etc. And I ask of you, please, to really understand what is in that bill before you take a resolution, and if you, against it, and if you don't understand it, please no resolution, because it is very heated on all sides. I do live in Clatsop County Timber Country out in Jewel, and to be honest with you, I haven't heard a big hoorah. Mostly I just get feedback from people that are funded by Timber Unity, which I worry does create this heated argument against it. I'm desperately worried about climate change, having grandchildren and the world we leave for them. I personally think the cap and trade bill has too many loopholes of big corporations. I would like to see a carbon tax, but I think it's important for the world that we are facing with climate change. And the devastation every year is worse and worse of the Category 5 hurricanes, huge icebergs breaking off of Antarctica. We haven't been seeing sea level rise because of the subduction zone is lifting us, but after the subduction zone, when we drop 7 feet here, we're going to be facing it head on. And it will happen someday here, and I would love to be part of a new world of looking at this. And if indeed we have a progressive president come next November elected in, I would love to see to really look if we have Green New Deal coming in, what kind of jobs in both cap and trade or Green New Deal can be developed here in Clatsop County, wave energy, all the infrastructure we need to progress to a more carbon neutral future. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Gladwin.
Bless you.
And I believe that's all the speakers we have tonight. I really, truly want to thank everyone for coming and speaking. I think that's really a very important part of this process. So thank you much, and we will move on to the next part of the agenda. So the next agenda is, did we do the consent calendar? Has
Consent.
already been?
No.
Okay.
Move adoption of the consent
Consent's
calendar.
next.
When we adopted the agenda.
No,
You need to.
Move adoption of the consent calendar. We
Yeah.
always do it separately.
I don't know what, I can't hear what anyone is saying.
Well, we did the agenda approval. Does that include that? And so then we go to the consent calendar, right?
So,
Okay.
so the next item on the agenda is the consent calendar.
So we need a motion for that.
Yeah, move
Chair
adoption of the
Sullivan,
consent.
I move that the board adopt or approve the consent calendar.
Thank you, Commissioner Nebaker.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Thompson. So we have a first and a second, and we've got an approval of the consent calendar. Moving right along.
Call for vote.
And we're going to move right on back. And let's have a vote on the consent calendar, please. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, we got that one taken care of. Yay. Thank you for coming. We are now going to move on to our Commissioners' Liaison reports. Anyone like to start tonight?
I'll start.
Okay.
So I attended the Human Services Advisory Council, and the council gave a thorough explanation why or why not each of the 16 outside agencies that applied were given or not given awards for their agencies. And of course, this presentation will also come before the board. But I'd like to say how much time they spend giving thorough consideration and very thoughtful. It's not easy. There's a limited amount of funds, and they want to always get the most for the amount that these agencies are awarded. And I attended the Arts Council of Clatsop County. They gave a recap of their first Arts Summit, and they are beginning to plan for the next, which would be in the fall. And they're beginning to organize that and looking critically at what worked and what did not work, what they can improve on. That's my report.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Commissioner Nebaker. And moving right along,
Well, Commissioner
we're
Webb,
going to
go through.
we're going to do Commissioner Webb next.
Okay. Commissioner Webb says that I attended a rather momentous meeting of the Southwest Workforce Advisory Board, Workforce Investment Board, which funds things that we see right in our own community. All the signs that you see in front of state office buildings that say WorkSource Oregon. These are the groups, usually always multi-county groups in Oregon, that plan for how the funding is going to be done. So the really good news is that the unemployment rate in Oregon is marvelously low. The really bad news is that when that happens, we receive less and less federal funding for our workforce initiatives. And those of us who represent counties in this work are having to pull back our budgets, and we're trying to make sure that none of our programs actually suffer. So in doing so, we're looking to make the administration of those programs as efficient as possible. And so all of the counties down the coast got together earlier this week and talked about perhaps consolidating our 2 workforce boards. We had a very nice discussion. We share actually all of our focus groups, which I thought was very interesting. And those focus groups center on healthcare, on the maritime industry, and on manufacturing. I thought it was particularly interesting that our board in the North Coast has a very active program going on in Columbia County that concerns textile manufacturing. And there are several companies in Columbia County who sell, for instance, to Boeing. They sell the fabric that goes on airplane seats. And it's a pretty robust program, and the private sector's been pretty wonderful in partnering with our public dollars. And we're expanding that program marvelously. However, in Southwest Oregon, their concentration on manufacturing is in wind turbines. They are convinced that they have a shelf that we don't have in the north part of the county, and they are encouraging investments in wind turbines and see it as a great part of their future. Understanding that their economy is not as robust as ours in the north is, and that they lack the tourism industry that we have that fuels a lot of our economy. So we talked about whether or not we could work together and whether or not we could save administrative costs by joining forces. And we didn't come to any conclusions. We gave the staff some assignments about taking a look at expenditures to achieve efficiency. And we agreed to talk again. I think that's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner Webb. Commissioner Cuellar, would you like to speak next?
I have nothing to report. I'll have a fair board report next meeting.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Thompson?
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Webb, I hope, as you're considering, I think we've mentioned this before, I hope when the workforce investment boards are considering, you look at unmet staffing needs, because we are in the child care desert. And so part of that desert is because we don't have adequate staff. We don't have adequate money to pay for adequate staff, but we still don't have adequate staff. So Kevin Leahy, who was just here, is working on that, but whatever you can do from your side of things to support the development of qualified child care staff and child care facility operators would just be greatly appreciated.
Absolutely. And actually, we have talked about expanding the whole human care training that needs to happen. I think an awful lot of people think that elder care is, doesn't require a degree. Well, it requires training. And child care is the same way. After school programs are the same way. So I think we have a really important something that actually I'm planning on talking with Clatsop Community College about.
Kevin's already doing some of that, but I'm sure he would welcome whatever you could do. But all I'm saying is when you're talking about getting the funding from the state and the federals, if you can say, yes, we have a low unemployment rate, but we also have a huge deficit in essential job services that are needed to have the economy work. Because if we don't have child care, people can't work.
I absolutely agree. Thank you.
Thank you. And in that regard, the Child Care Task Force, we're still looking at developing the community leadership so that we'll be able to proceed with community projects. Kevin Leahy is working with the Small Business Development Center and the Community College to increase the skill of the workforce and to increase the business acumen so that people can operate and stay in business, because we're talking about a business operation and it's complicated. So he's working on that. We're working on the community leadership to deal with 0 to 4. With Preschool Promise, the school systems all over the county are working on preschool for 4-year-olds, which is essential and supplements what Head Start has been doing already.
And so looking to have an integrated community system. The folks, again, in Seaside, the school people are saying at the Seaside School District, 50% of the children entering kindergarten have had no preschool experience. And so they begin at a deficit and they stay there. So that's essential. Somebody was at my house doing electrical work, and we were talking about childcare. He said he's only able to work part-time, his wife is only able to work part-time, and the only reason they're able to do that at all is because they have family to provide childcare. So that's just an anecdotal example of something that is very important. I went to the community action team, and it's very interesting because they have Viridian as their property manager. I'm hoping that that can help inform NOAA going forward. I don't know if it'll work. It's based in enterprise, but it's property management. It's clear, comprehensive, transparent accountability, which is useful in any public program, but I'm hoping that's helpful going forward. Community action team in St. Helens that covers Columbia, Clatsop, and Tillamook counties authorized $2,500 to be sent to Pendleton to deal with the flood victims in Umatilla County. Perhaps even more importantly, so we dug into our coffers for that, the board authorized it. And even more important than that, Dan Brown has effective experience in dealing with recovery from flooding because Vernonia had 2, and so he's personally experienced, so he's giving them the benefit of his personal experience. We still have, that's one. So second thing, we still have freshwater issues in my water district. The moratorium has been extended. There's a lot of community consternation and angst about it. As I mentioned, there are 2 physicians from Providence Seaside who want to build a home in my neighborhood who are not able to do that expeditiously because of the water moratorium, so they had to put in an alternative system. They're both physicians, so they're providing essential community services at an extra $50,000 to $60,000. That's daunting. There are also concerns in my neighborhood about wastewater issues and enforcement. I've been talking with the county manager about having a complaint system that's numbered. Back in the day, we had a numbered complaint system. And so we knew when we had a complaint from a community member, because Commissioner Nebaker, you had a concern, where's the data, where are the complaints? We haven't tracked them in that way, but I hope we can, because what I hear consistently, repeatedly, and loudly is that there is a great number of problems from, primarily from transient occupancy. Cap and trade's a contentious issue. Very contentious issue. I really appreciate everybody that came. I appreciated the thoughtful and articulate testimony that every single person offered. This impacts all of us. If we don't have a livable planet, nobody lives. On the other hand, if we don't take into account each other with respect and affection and a considered process where we hear each other, and do a baseline, what's already happening, before we provide a solution that we say, this, you have to do this right now or else. Look at what counties are doing, look at what industries are doing, do a comprehensive analysis, because people are terrified that their futures are being destroyed on all sides of that issue, and I agree. So let's take the time, make haste slowly. I was in Cannon Beach out in front of the post office yesterday, and one of my friends went cruising by because I was getting a lot of ear chewing on, but one of my friends went by and she said, make war peacefully. So I like that. Let's listen together to wage peace together. As I said, the Child Care Task Force is moving forward. The Arch Cape Forest is coming before us. They got $1 million from the federal government. They got $1 million. Yahoo! So that project is moving forward.
they're looking at more. They are on the top 10 list across the whole nation to get even more funding. So this is really an important, viable project. And one of the things I want to say, when I think about cap and trade and carbon load, we get extra carbon load from all the tourists driving here in the tourism industry. So the real costs, the real benefits, and the real consequences have to be considered. That extra carbon load from the tourism, I never see that talked about. When I raise it, people nod and go, oh yeah, it never comes out in the data. So I hope we get more complete data to look at that. We're also looking in terms of housing about doing community development corporations and land trusts to buy the land so that the housing stays affordable in perpetuity. We're looking to get grants to do an inventory of all of our business economic development conditions, long-term system issues, but still working on those. Just wanted to mention those. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Thompson. And I appreciate you mentioning Umatilla flooding, and I just wanted to say another shout out to our County Emergency Manager Director, Tiffany Brown, that she went and helped that community and did a lot of good work there, and I hope that we can get her in front of here to talk about the work that she did do. It was tremendous. And I think it's an example of what I hear when I go to the Board of Forestry when they're talking in the last few years about the catastrophic. This past year was a better one for us than normal. Is a good neighbor policy. And I think that an example of them reaching out to us and us being able to send our director down there to help them is part of what Senator Wyden talks about the Oregon Way, that we work together as neighbors to solve problems. And I'm very proud of that, and I'm very proud of our Tiffany Mitchell for going down there, and our county for being able to have someone of that magnitude to come down there and help.
Tiffany Brown.
Tiffany Mitchell, sorry.
She went someplace.
Wrong office, so should have stuck with it. I'm not real good with names. And
We got your back. One of us is.
And so then earlier this week, I attended the Department of Oregon Forestry came to Clatsop County to talk about the forest management plan. And it was about how they determine what lots are going to be sold. And I think it's a real sign of respect that they've come to Clatsop County several different times to talk directly to us and anyone that's interested, and that's inviting anyone in the counties on either side of us to come. But I was happy to sit, and I think they did a really good presentation. And then this Friday, I believe we have the presentation from the Fish and Wildlife Department is going to come and talk to us about a habitat conservation plan and how that relates to our update of our comprehensive plan. And I think that it shows how important natural resources are to this county and how important it is to the people that live here. But these resources need to be managed, and so it's great that we have the people that are managing these resources to come and talk to us and allow us to ask questions back. And if you miss the ones here, they always have them at the in Salem. And there's a website, the Oregon Forestry Department has a list of the meetings, the agendas. Next week, I'm not going to be able to attend it, but next week is going to be another Board of Forestry meeting down in Salem on Wednesday. And then finally, I was very fortunate to attend a tour this afternoon out at Tongue Point. It was put on by, they do tours, they're open. If you're interested in going on a tour, you can call and arrange a tour. And this particular tour was by some of the women in Astoria that meet on a monthly basis to go to different things. And today, in this month's tour was out at Tongue Point, and it was to see the young women that are in the trades. And we got to be introduced to the young women that are working in the seamanship program. And then also we went into the carpentry, the women that are working in carpentry. We didn't get to go into electrical one, but I was just really very struck by the courage that these women to make a change in their life, to commit to a program, and to work as hard as they do. And then the success rate, it's very, it's warming to your heart to see people to be able to do that. And the only criteria out there, besides the age, is an income. And most of these folks out there are coming from very economically tough circumstances. And I think it was really heartening for me to go and meet those people, and perhaps maybe in the future we can have them come and do a presentation of what Turn Point does. But I also wanted to say another thing is that they're surprised by how few of the candidates there, because it's a federal program, how few of the candidates there come from our area. And it's the same thing for the MERTS program, and it's a real missed opportunity. I mean, I think that if they graduate from the carpenter's program, they start out at like $24 plus an hour, and then they have a very steady climb up. The MERTS program, graduates from that program can start getting jobs at $90,000 a year. I mean, that's amazing, and it's right in our backyard. And so I would like to help them get the word out that for young people in our area and other people, the MERTS program is not limited by age, to get the word out there that that's a great opportunity. So with that, I'll pass it on to County Manager Don. I know your name, so.
Are you ready for me now?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. Just real quickly, Chair Sullivan, members of the board, I just want to thank you for your time on the strategic planning initiative that we started with Portland State University. They've gone back, and staff and Mike and Terry and Brent will be partnering in the next month to prepare for the next work session that'll be scheduled in April. So we'll continue that work. Another quick update is that there is a lot of interest in the community about the coronavirus and how the county, the state, the federal government, and really a lot of public and private partners are collaborating on that. And so staff is putting information out on the website. We'll be coming to your board probably in the next week or two to give you an overview, and then we'll be reaching out to the other cities just to answer questions, let folks know how we're planning for that. There's been some questions about how the cruise ships interface and what happens there, and the Coast Guard is intimately involved also. So I just wanted to let you know that we are working on it, and we'll package that in a way that we can communicate it effectively, but there is information already on the county website also. So that's all I have.
Chair Sullivan, can I
Yes,
make a
certainly.
comment? Thank you very much for doing that, because I know that people are concerned, and I have read that there is already starting to be some shortages in some medical supplies because people are so afraid, and so
That's correct.
they're buying things now. And so thank you for being proactive in that way.
Yes, I appreciate that. Thank you. I think we all do. So, any other comments that people are just dying to make? Okay. So let's move on to our business agenda. And today we have, I can never find my, so on today's business agenda, we have 3 items. One is the Human Services Advisory Council membership recommendations. That's on page 57. The other one is the Ambulance Service Area Advisory Committee reappointments. That's on page 72. And the final one is the appointment of the Budget Committee members, page 78. And I see Ms. Steele is here, so I will turn this over to her.
I'm just here to speak to the Human Services Advisory Committee appointments. There were 2 vacancies, Linda Crandall. Yeah. Linda Crandall and Marion Durlett. They are existing members who will be, I just don't know where to go. They are existing members who will be coming back, or who are asking asking to be reappointed.
This is kind of cosmic. What's
Yeah.
going on?
It's my powers. So the staff is requesting that you approve the appointment of Linda Crandall and Marion Durlett to the Human Services Advisory Council.
Okay, what I'm excited about is that we are going to practice a method of taking care of these appointments. And what we're going to do is we're going to nominate, and once I get all the nominations, then we will, and we don't need to second the nominations, and then we will vote and order the nominations until the positions are full. So we have two coming up for the appointment for Human Service Advisory Council. Do I have any nominations for this committee?
Madam Chair, could I just ask a clarifying question, please? Point of order. Do you want them one at a time, or do you want more than one at a time if there are only two vacancies and two candidates?
I think for practice, we'll do one at a time.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I would like to nominate Linda Crandall.
Okay, so we have Linda Crandall. Do we have any other nominations?
Madam Chair, I move to nominate Marion, glasses, Durlett, sorry. Thanks
Okay.
for your,
Are there any other nominations for this committee? Okay, we will now go into the voting phase of this. Linda Crandall has been nominated for the open positions. We will vote in order they are nominated. These two candidates have been nominated. We'll vote in order they've been nominated. We will now vote on nominee number one, Linda Crandall. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Nebeker?
Aye.
Commissioner Webb?
Aye.
Commissioner Cleaver?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Aye.
Commissioner Sullivan?
Aye. The vote is 5-0, and so Linda Crandall, you have been appointed, been elected, elected for that position. So let's go to the second person, and that would be Marion Durlett.
Madam Chair, I nominate Marion Durlett.
I already did.
We have already, we're voting now, so if
Sorry.
we can have the clerk call the roll, please.
Commissioner Webb?
Aye.
Commissioner Cleaver?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Aye.
Commissioner Nebeker?
Yes.
Commissioner Sullivan?
Aye. So the vote is 5-0, and Marion Durlett, you have also been elected to the Human Services Advisory Council. And so all those positions are now full. Thank you. Let's move on to the Ambulance Service Area Advisory Committee reappointments. And so on that one, this is on page 72.
The county emergency manager isn't here as staff. You're going to do that?
Chair Sullivan, members of the board, we have two vacancies. There's actually three vacancies, but there are two vacancies that we're recommending to be filled, and they are reappointments, and they're reappointments of Dwayne Johnson and Jill Tillotson.
Okay, may I have nominations, please?
Madam Chair, I nominate Dwayne Johnson for appointment.
Thank you. Any other nominations?
I would nominate Jill Tillotson.
Okay, thank you very much. So we have two nominations, Dwayne Johnson and Jill Tillotson. Clerk, may you please read the roll, and we'll vote on them.
Commissioner Nebeker?
This is for Dwayne Johnson.
Yes.
Commissioner Webb?
Yes.
Commissioner Cleaver?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Aye.
Commissioner Sullivan?
Aye. Okay, so it's 5-0 for Dwayne Johnson to be, he has been elected to the ASAA committee. Let's go to the next one, Jill Tillotson.
Commissioner Webb?
Aye.
Commissioner Cleaver?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Aye.
Commissioner Nebeker?
Aye.
Commissioner Sullivan?
Aye. Okay, so that again is 5-0 for Jill Tillotson. She has been elected to the ASAA committee. So those two positions have been filled. Thank you. And now we'll move on to the final
committee that we're dealing with today, and that is the Budget Committee.
The microphones were trying to tell me that I sat in the wrong spot.
So I spied Ms. Steele over there. Would you like to speak to us, please?
Yes, the staff is staff is asking that you appoint 2 members to the Budget Committee. There are 2 vacancies, one for District 2 and one for District 3. There were a total of 4 applicants. 3 of them came from District 2 and 1 of them came from District 1. So there were no applicants for District 3. So you can either direct staff to go back out and advertise, or you can appoint one of the 4 that has been, that have submitted an application. So at this time, the District 2 applicants were Tita Montero, Greg Sawyer, and Robert Shortman. Greg Sawyer is asking to be reappointed, and then the other 2 would be new applicants. This is for a full 3-year term. The District 3 vacancy is, there is a District 1 applicant for that vacancy, or one of the other 2 District 2 applicants. The District 3 term is an unexpired term, and it will only be for 1 year, so the person would have to resubmit for February 2021.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Steele. We had, let me turn this over to the board. Is there any discussion about this, please? Commissioner Webb?
I would like to request that we not fill the vacancy for District 3 tonight. I'd like to beat the bushes a little more and see if we can get an applicant from District 3, which is my district, and I feel quite firmly that each district should be represented on the Budget Committee. So I would like to ask that we defer this appointment.
Can I ask, so if I advertise for that position for beginning when the paper allows us to, which I'm not sure that I'll be able to make it this week or else by Tuesday, so then basically for the entire month of March?
Yes.
Okay.
I think we agree that we can wait until April.
Yeah,
to do
so we
this.
could make an appointment at the first meeting in April.
Oh, okay.
So-
Yeah, okay. So that's my request.
Does anyone have any issues with that idea?
I defer to Commissioner Webb's interest in that.
Okay, so I think we have consensus on that position for Area 3.
Madam Chair, I have a clarifying question.
Sure.
We're blessed to have 3 applicants for 1 position. The Board of Property Tax Appeals has alternates. That's a statutory thing. The statute is silent on the idea of alternates for the Budget Committee. But it might be interesting to have 1 designated representative and 1 or more alternates in case something happens. Because sometimes what's happened, if for some reason a member of the Budget Committee isn't available, if we had an alternate, they would have come to all the meetings and then they could step in. I just made it up. What do you think, County Council? Is that,
I would have to do some research before I could give an answer.
well, it was just, it was an idea. We have all of these wonderful community servants who are willing to volunteer, and that's lovely. And here we have positions that have gone vacant. We've got 3 candidates for a position, so there is some idea that an advisory or really a legally, not advisory, a duly empowered committee could have alternates. So I just thought it might be interesting if we broke new ground in Clatsop County and see if we had alternates for the Budget Committee.
Well, I think that's an interesting idea. I personally wouldn't feel comfortable making a decision on the spot like that. But this is a process, and we can certainly look into the possibility. But I think, and I do appreciate the difficulty of getting volunteers, and I so appreciate everyone that has volunteered, and we would like to use our volunteers as much as we can because we do have empty positions, but that would be a decision that I don't think we're ready to make tonight.
Exactly, but if we're coming back to fill the position for District 3, we could consider it at that time if council finds that it is in fact legal, because it may not be legal. I don't know.
Well, yeah, I think we'd have to talk more about it at another time. But I think tonight what we should do is to fill that one position for it's District 2, isn't it?
Commissioner Nemeker's district.
So I will now entertain nominations for that position.
Chair Sullivan, I would nominate Tita Montero.
Thank you. Any other nominations?
I'd nominate Greg Sawyer.
Okay. Any other nominations? Okay, so we will vote on the nominations in order of nomination. So if we could have the clerk read the...
Is this for Tita Montero?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Commissioner Nemeker?
Aye.
Commissioner Webb?
Aye.
Commissioner Quila?
No.
Commissioner Thompson?
Aye.
Commissioner Sullivan?
Aye. So the vote is 4-1, with 4 approving and 1 opposing. So it would appear that Tita Montero is elected to this position. So, thank you.
With great respect and thanks to Mr. Sawyer for serving.
Yes.
before.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so we are now moving on to, and since we have that position is full, we don't then vote on the next one.
I must say, Chair, you've done this very well.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear
You've
you.
done this very well.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so are there any things for the good of the order? All right, well, then this meeting is in adjournment. Thank you so much for everyone for coming.
The hardest part is remembering everybody's names.